a couple of unlikely overtime heroes, and the heat was turned up big time on Tuesday evening. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2026. Morren and Smith with you. On Tuesday, I thought that besides the temperature being raised considerably in each of the four series, I was amazed at how much each of those four game twos looked like each of those four game ones.
Well, because they were all close. And that's the thing that I really got out of this night was that nobody is steamrolling anybody anywhere, even the mighty Colorado Avalanche, which I know we're going to get to. But if you think about the other three series, everything's evened up. I don't know that you would have seen these things be this close going into the series. Would you have seen it being 1-goal games all over the board? I don't think so. It's just amazingly close, inch by inch. Somebody comes out the winner.
We're going to start with that Colorado-Los Angeles game because that went almost midway through that first OT. But when we talk about the heat being raised and the physicality starting to pick up, Scott Laughton got blown up for the second consecutive game by Josh Manson of the Avalanche, and he actually had a brief interview with Eric Johnson of ESPN, who's doing a great job relating to a lot of these players, many of them former Avalanche teammates. But in the case of Laughton, who's with the Kings, he asked him about it, and he just came back and says, hey, there's no bicycles on the highway, and perfectly accepting of getting hit hard twice. It's what Stanley Cup hockey is, and I just loved his candidness about it.
It's a great answer by Laughton, and you know what? You have to have a lot of respect for that. He's not crying about it. He's not saying it was a cheap shot. He's not saying any of that. He's just saying, look, I got to keep my head up. And I love that expression. There's no bicycles allowed on the highway.
So this game was scoreless into the second period. And then Quinton Byfield had a breakaway, took a shot on the hands from Cale Makar, who was trying to chase him down, and he was awarded a penalty shot. We've already had 3 penalty shots in the playoffs. And once again, save goaltender, as Scott Wedgwood made a glove stop on this one. But perhaps what was even more bizarre is what would happen right after, because in celebration, the fans behind the Kings bench started to pound on that pane of glass, and that thing came showering down on the Kings coaching staff.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have thought that that was Herculite glass. I would have thought that that would have been plexiglass. Plexiglass won't break like that. Only tempered real glass shatters into a million pieces like that. Went all over DJ Smith, all over the place. It took them quite a while to pull all that out of the joints so that they could get a new piece in. And even when they did, it wasn't in completely properly. But they had to get the game going again because it was quite a delay. But that was bizarre.
I didn't know you were such a glass expert.
Oh yeah, I am.
Yeah, you're like my Safe Light guy now.
Yeah, tempered real glass is what that glass is. It's real glass, but tempered. But they usually use plexiglass everywhere now, but obviously not there.
But just so you know that they don't miss a beat with anything, that new panel of glass had the exact same advertising on it as the old panel.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I didn't think it did. I thought it had different stickers on there. In any case, it doesn't matter. They got the game going again. It's not supposed to break like that, obviously. It's supposed to be able to take puck shot at it hard and stuff, and let alone hands hitting it. I don't understand it. I'll have to read up and see if we can find why that happened.
Yeah, all right. No more glass discussion. We're losing listeners here. But the thing that impressed me here was that the Kings were not giving up a lot in this game. They didn't give up a lot in game one either. And I think DJ Smith and his staff have devised a game plan that they're trying to shorten the game. They are trying to really make this a half-ice game. They're taking away a lot of the Avalanche speed. I mean, you can't neutralize a team like the Avalanche completely. But even in the defensive zone, their perimeters are very well guarded, and they're making the Avs work to get into those prime scoring areas in the offensive zone. So I think that this has been a real solid effort by the Kings thus far.
It has been, but at the end of the day, they go home 0-2, and they got to win Game 3 now for sure. That'll be a tough thing to do for the Kings. The Avalanche is the cream of the crop, and the Kings are just trying to hang in there. I agree with you that DJ Smith and his staff have put together a real good game plan. And had they been a bit luckier last night, they might have gotten a win, but they didn't. And when they go home, now their backs are almost on the wall because they've got to win Game 3.
The third period was also eventful. About 10 seconds in, right off a faceoff, Sam Malinsky took a shot, and it lodged in the outer skirting of the net. Bob Wischusen called it a goal, and everybody's going crazy there, but clearly puck on the outside of the net, and then Quentin Byfield and Val Nichushkin both had good chances in the third period. But the Kings actually went ahead in this game with under 7 minutes left in regulation. Artemi Panarin drew a penalty, and then during the course of the kill, very interesting sequence here, because Josh Manson went to clear the puck for the Avalanche. It hit the linesman, went into the bench area, and so there was another faceoff in the Colorado end, and Panarin winds up scoring that goal. And on that same play, Neil, Scott Laughton knocked down Devon Taves. So on 2 counts, Avalanche pissed off at the officials.
He clearly knocked him down from behind. It was like he was clearing the front of the net. What he was doing, he was giving himself some space, but he knocked Taves down at the same time. Panarin shot from the high slot and scored the goal. So just some bad breaks for the Avalanche to give the lead to the Kings.
But that lead managed to last only 3 minutes and 21 seconds because off a faceoff, Cody Ceci tried to clear the puck around the boards, didn't get all of it. It's held in by Taves, gets it to Marty Necas, and it's Gabe Landeskog, the captain, tying the game with 3:35 left. And so we go to overtime. There were chances on both ends, but in the end, it's Nick Waugh banging in a rebound off a Manson shot at 7:44. So as you had said before, great effort by the Kings in both games in Denver, and they've got nothing to show for it heading home.
Absolutely, and that Game 3 is pivotal because they're either only down by 1 or their backs are against the wall. They're down by 3. Game 3 is a huge game in a series when it's 2-0 for one side or the other.
And that third game will be played in Los Angeles Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern on TNT. Let's move to the East, where the Tampa Bay Lightning pull even against the Montreal Canadiens, winning 3-2 in overtime. Big news here. Victor Hedman, who we had thought might come back when this series heads up to Montreal for Game 3 or 4, now listed as out for the remainder of the series. He did take part in an optional workout on Tuesday, but no Hedman, and Charles-Edouard D'Astoud also out after being sandwiched on that hit in Game 1 between Josh Anderson and Jake Evans. Declan Carlisle was called up to replace D'Astoud. And also, to add some more toughness, Scott Sabrin was in the lineup for the Lightning, and it appeared from the outset that he was looking to make Josh Anderson pay for that hit on D'Astoud in Game 1.
But Anderson didn't take the bait, and Anderson stayed in the game and did some damage of his own.
I thought Anderson was very effective in this game. He scored one of the 2 goals for the Canadiens that put them up in the second period. Here's a guy that's in the 6th year of a 7-year contract. And I thought that when he came over from Columbus, that this was really a terrific acquisition by the Canadiens. But he really hasn't produced on a level that I thought he would. But playoff hockey really fits into what he does best. And that's a physical style of play and also being able to be impactful on the score sheet at times.
He does that, and he is a better player probably in the playoffs than he is during that 82-game schedule when it's a grind every night. He is so noticeable in the playoffs. At least in this series, he's been extremely noticeable, and I think extremely effective for the Canadiens.
I love the physicality in this series, and things are getting on when Juraj Slafkovsky gets in a fight with Brandon Hagel. And I said after game one, Hagel has been the single most noticeable player on the Lightning for games 1 and 2.
Oh, absolutely. He might be the most noticeable player in the series. He scores goals, he fights, he takes penalties, he's yapping at the other team. I mean, he's everything. He's a reincarnated Pat Verbeek.
Wow. That's a good one. The Canadiens led this game late into the third period, and Nikita Kucherov entered the game having not scored in 16 consecutive playoff games dating back to April 18, 2023, when he scored in game 1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. An interesting stat that in those 16 games, the Lightning have only won 3 times. And he's a guy that is the absolute catalyst. We have raved about him all year, being a magician, a maestro on the ice. But he has noticeably struggled, particularly in the goal-scoring area in the playoffs. And on a fortunate play for the Lightning, where Cole Caulfield got the puck to Slafkovsky, but the hero of game 1, bad turnover, and Kucherov, who's usually on the right side of the ice, happened to be on the left side, got the puck, and on a wraparound, managed to tie the game with 7:27 left in regulation. And it was almost like the weight of the world was off Kucherov after he scored that goal.
Yeah, well, he's watched so carefully by the other team, too. I mean, I'm sure that in every pregame meeting, they're talking about number 86 and watch out for him because he is such a gifted player. But that was quite a wraparound.
Maybe he can do a little bit of an endorsement for us. But Lightning weren't out of the woods yet. And in order to get this game into overtime, they had to kill off a penalty with 2:15 left in regulation. I don't know what Scott Sabourin was doing on the ice. He knocks down Josh Anderson in the neutral zone. Lane Hudson wound up hitting a post. Otherwise, this would be a 2-0 lead for the Canadiens heading back to Montreal. But I just don't get why this guy is out there in that spot and isn't disciplined enough to not take a stupid penalty. I mean, if you hold a guy, if you're trying to take away a scoring chance, I get it. That was complete idiocy.
You have to wonder why John Cooper would have Sabourin on the ice. I mean, it is late in the game. You've just put him back into the lineup. He's not out there because he's a great defensive player, great offensive player. We talk about John Cooper and say how wonderful he is, which he is, but this was not a good match.
Fourth line player in that spot. I don't get it. But nonetheless, Sabourin and the Lightning breathe a sigh of relief. They get this game to overtime, and it was really all Lightning. In the extra frame, they get all 9 shots on goal. I thought Jakub Dobeš was terrific. But with 7:12 left in that first overtime, it was J.J. Moser, of all people, scoring the overtime winner. And the one problem that I really had was the defensive play by Kirby Dach, who came straight out towards Moser, and Moser was able to evade him and then get a real good shot off that beat Dobeš. So a couple of really unlikely heroes in the first 2 games we're talking about, Nick Waugh and J.J. Moser with overtime winners.
Yeah, but isn't that the way it usually goes in the playoffs? Sometimes it's the big names, the huge names, but a lot of times it's that secondary and third line scoring that comes through.
And a defenseman. You know, who knew?
Yeah, exactly. That's playoff hockey. That's what makes it so great.
Before we get off of this game, I think Jakub Dobeš has been terrific in the first 2 games. Are our concerns about the Canadiens' goaltending now dissipated?
Well, I think they are for the moment, but I'm not sure how far you go. I mean, Freddie Anderson has been great for the Carolina Hurricanes in their first 2 games as well. But you wouldn't say, well, you're ready to anoint him. So
you
depends.
know where I am on that.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter how the poor guy plays. Anyway, I would say Dobeš has been great, but you just got to keep watching.
Game 3 of this series in Montreal, Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern on TNT. Let's head over to Buffalo, where the Sabres took a 1-0 lead into game number 2. And this game had a lot going on as well. Ukko PekkaLuukkonen, in the first period, knocked down Tanner Jeannot. And then at the other end of the ice, there was a scrum. Everybody was involved. And I am happy to report that when they took the shot of the Sabres penalty box, the same penalty box operator was there as when there was that mishap with Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago. It was the same guy.
Good on the Sabres and on the arena not to let this poor guy go.
I think as we'd seen in all these series, and we'll get to Utah and Vegas after this game, but there's something about the second games that the familiarity of starting a series is now done, and the real hatred starts to build up. And we saw this in this first period in the game between the Bruins and the Sabres.
Yeah, and it's also because it's a divisional rival. They've seen each other quite a bit during the regular season, and it gets very, very intense.
More roughing penalties than anything else, but both teams trying to make their statement. And I thought for the second straight game, the Bruins started stronger. Luukkonen had to make a save on a Mark Kastelik breakaway, then stopped Victor Arvidsson on a breakaway. But Arvidsson, not to be denied, breaks the seal less than 5 minutes into the second period. But the backbreaker here for Buffalo was this backhanded flip by Morgan Geekie that Luukkonen came out, tried to meet the puck. It bounced almost like a football, passed him into the net, and it's 2-0. And there's a lot of air out of the building in Buffalo.
Yeah, that was the most bizarre, and will probably remain for the rest of the playoffs, the most bizarre goal we're going to see. It was strictly Geekie backhanding it up in the air and trying to get it into the zone and on net to make the goaltender play it. But the bounce it took, it looked like it was on edge. It took a bad bounce, went past him. It was really weird to see. If you haven't seen it, go catch that somewhere on YouTube or something, because it was a weird goal.
And not long after that, Pavel Zacha redirected in, pass from David Pastrnak, and it's a 3-0 lead going into the third period. And we remember in game 1, it was 2-0 Bruins heading into the third. So any thought that the Sabres were going to have about a comeback kind of got squashed 16 seconds into the third when Arvidsson got a second of the game. At that point, Luukkonen gets pulled for Alex Lyon. But once again, the Bruins letting up late in the game, Bowen Byram and Peyton Krebs score 1:14 apart within the final 7 minutes. This is part of a 20-shot third period for the Sabres. At that point, Marco Sturm called timeout, tried to tamp the temperature down a little bit, and the Bruins survived. But most of the remainder of the game was spent in their end, and this got really close to being a one-goal game.
Yeah, after taking that big lead, give Sabres credit. I mean, they were still coming at them with reckless abandon in that period. They dominated the period. Whether that'll carry over to TD Garden for game 3, we'll have to wait and see. Nevertheless, the Bruins come out of where they wanted to come out of Buffalo. They wanted to come out at least 1-1, and they did.
I think they're playing with a little bit of fire here because the Sabres power play is now 0 for 31 in its last 9 games going back to the end of the regular season. They're 0 for 9 in this series. And we had noted that the Bruins were shorthanded more often than any other team in the NHL during the course of the regular season. They were shorthanded 3.4 times per game in the regular season, and it's 4.5 in the first 2 games of this series. If the Sabres power play gets going, this is going to be very problematic for the Bruins, and I don't care where you're playing games 3 and 4.
No, absolutely. And the thing is it's not like Buffalo doesn't have snipers. I mean, they got Tage Thompson out there. They got Alex Tuck. They got Dahlin on the point. They got some very good goal scorers. So they're going to have to be careful because you know how it is. It's 0 for 9 right now. That can be 2 for 11 very quickly.
And if they get a goal somewhere in there before this gets to 4-1, this could have a very different outcome.
It could have, but it didn't. And the Bruins, as I said, get to go back to Boston tied at 1 apiece, and now they have home ice.
That third game will be played Thursday, 7 o'clock, TNT. Final game, Utah Mammoth, even their series with the Vegas Golden Knights with a 3-2 win at the Fortress. Once again, Utah is showing in this game, Neil, that they're not intimidated by the big stage, all the noise, all the pageantry that goes on in Vegas. They had a pretty strong first game, and that really carried over throughout game number 2.
Yeah, it did. They're the young team. They got a lot of energy. They played very, very well in this game.
This also the first loss in regulation for John Tortorella since taking over as Golden Knights head coach. This game started off well enough for Vegas. Mark Stone getting the opening goal, centering pass that was probably intended for Tomas Hertl, went off Mikhail Sergachev's skate, but not long after that, Mackenzie Weegar gets one to go in off Rasmus Andersson to tie the game at 1. But in this game, I thought that Carter Hart really had to be outstanding because during the second and third periods, there was a period of time that the Mammoth outshot Vegas 23-8. And I'm more of a guy that says, don't tell me how many, tell me where they're from. But that number was really indicative of how this game was being played.
Yeah, and again, this young team, they're enthusiastic, and they did dominate during that period of time. And Carter Hart had to be right on his toes and was terrific again for Vegas. And I think they've proven themselves with this victory that they can win this series. Utah Mammoth is going home thinking they can win the series.
In the second period of this game, Dylan Guenther, who was a guy you said needed to step up and put some pucks in the net, he scored to put the Mammoth up 2-1. But Ivan Barbashev even the score 62 seconds later. So we went to the third period, and again, the Mammoth continued to show that they were a little bit faster, a little bit stronger on pucks, and on a stretch play breakout, Logan Cooley finishes off a Guenther rebound to put the Mammoth ahead to stay with 6 minutes left in regulation. The Golden Knights did put some pressure on at the end. They got the last 3 shots on goal in the game. But for the Utah Mammoth, their first ever playoff win in franchise history, and they will return to a raucous Delta Center on Friday at 9:30 Eastern on TBS. What a scene that's going to be. By the way, we're supposed to be there, and we're not.
That's right. Well, I didn't get those tickets from Bill Armstrong yet. Airline tickets.
Yeah, and I was also looking for that stay in the Four Seasons. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great spectacle there. And how much better that they're going to be playing this in a jammed actual major league arena as opposed to playing a playoff game at the Mullet Arena in Arizona.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing is, too, is that no matter what happens, the Utah fans are not going to see Vegas skate off the ice with this series. This series is going back to Vegas. So you're going to see 2 really good games in Utah. If they get another split, it's down to 2 out of 3. But right now, it's down to 3 out of 5 with Utah having home ice.
Wednesday schedule, and for the next 4 days and nights, coverage shifts over in the States to TNT and TBS while ESPN covers the draft. First game of the night will be Pittsburgh at Philadelphia, 7 o'clock on TNT. The Flyers leading the series 2-0. So the cautionary tale, I think, for the Flyers here is to not get outside of yourselves, to try to do the same things that you did in Pittsburgh. But you know how human nature is. You come home, you want to put up more of a show for the fans, and sometimes that takes you out of your game and it proves costly. So let's see if Rick Tocchet can keep his guys under control in what is going to be a raucous building in Philadelphia.
Oh, for sure. That's Rick Tocchet's job and his coaching staff, is to remind his team that they got to play exactly the same way as they did in Pittsburgh. No taking chances, no nothing. They just have to buckle down and stay playing that game they've been playing.
Put on your Dan Muse hat now. You're a rookie head coach. You're going into enemy territory, down 2 games. Your club hasn't played well. You're not getting offense. What's your key?
Score the first goal. Put them back on their heels. Make sure you get that, or try as best you can to get the first goal. Quiet the crowd and go back to work.
I just have a feeling on Pittsburgh winning for some reason in this game. I think the veteran leadership, I think that this club has seen adversity before. Not necessarily so much this season, but all of their superstars have seen it in the past, and I don't think they're going to be that intimidated going into Philadelphia.
They're not going to be intimidated at all. I mean, Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, Erik Karlsson, and the rest of them, Anthony Mantha and all the rest, Stu Skinner. He's not going to be intimidated after going to the final the last 2 years. I'd be shocked if Philly was able to win both of these games in Philadelphia. It'd be stunning. And I could see Pittsburgh coming back home with the series tied up.
Well, one of us picked the Flyers in this series, and it wasn't you.
No, it wasn't.
At 9:30 on TNT, Dallas visits Minnesota. That series tied at a game apiece. For the Stars, Roope Hintz out tonight and likely out for Game 4 also. And for the Wild, let's see what the status is on Matt Zuccarello and Jakub Trenin. Zuccarello missed Game 2, and apparently the injury that he sustained was on an elbow to the head from Tyler Myers in the first period of Game 1, but he did manage to finish that game. Trenin listed as day-to-day, upper body injury, likely in the head area on that hit from Colin Blackwell in the first period of Game 2. Those are 2 important players in different roles for the Wild, and they're going to need one or both of them back in this lineup.
Everybody's important when the playoffs come because your team is put together in a certain way, and they definitely are important. Going back to Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the bad news for Flyer fans might end up being nothing, but it looks like something is Owen Tippett not on the ice for the morning skate.
Possible maintenance, you think?
Not on the day of a game.
All right. We'll stay tuned for that one. Last game of the night, 10 o'clock Eastern on TBS. The Edmonton Oilers take a 1-0 lead into Game 2 against Anaheim. Adam Henrique for the Oilers will miss this second game. He got tangled up with Kasperi Kapanen, his own teammate, in the first period of Game 1 and was favoring an ankle. Strong finish for the Oilers there. I thought that Anaheim played well, but as we had said yesterday when we talked about the first game, their defensive breakdowns are so obvious that it's not even funny, and their down low coverage has to improve. Otherwise, this is going to go back to Anaheim 2-0.
Well, and they've got to get that offense pumped up and take advantage of Connor Ingram, who's the goaltender of record for the Edmonton Oilers, who at one time was bought out by the Utah Mammoth and then ended up signing in the American League earlier this season, and then ended up signing with Edmonton and ended up becoming their number 1 goalie for the playoffs of all things. So Anaheim can score goals. That's the one thing they can do. They've got to get their defensive game back in better order and then do what they do best, which is score goals.
In a late injury note for the Ducks, Captain Radko Gudas is out tonight and considered day-to-day per head coach Joel Quenneville. Drew Hellison draws in as Gudas' replacement. Reach us individually at Neil at NHLWraparound.com or Vic at NHLWraparound.com. We are on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. So leave a review or subscribe. We are now up to 839 subscribers on YouTube, and we are running polls throughout this first round of the playoffs. So check them out and weigh in on your opinion. You can also find us on X, Instagram, TikTok at RayD8.tv and the new platform Buzzer. That's BZZR.com. Our website is NHLWraparound.com, and our latest spring cleaning dropped on Tuesday when we talked about the Columbus Blue Jackets. So upcoming, the Washington Capitals, Nashville Predators, Winnipeg Jets, and San Jose Sharks in the coming days. So what are you looking for tonight?
I'm just looking to see if Pittsburgh can get themselves back in the series. That's the most interesting thing to me. I think you'll see whether Anaheim's got a sniff, got a chance when you see that game with Edmonton. And, of course, the Minnesota-Dallas series, which is so even. Whoever wins tonight, the other team could win the next game. I mean, they're very even, so that could keep going back and forth. I guess, Vic, the most interesting thing I'll have is watching what goes on in Philadelphia tonight.
Join us on Thursday. We'll recap it all and then set up the nights to come.